All right. So, Brian, thank you so much for joining us. I'm really excited. I love your content. I do. And I always feel like what you have to share is poignant and you say it like it is. It's refreshing. I think right now is a time when people feel particularly unsure of how to approach what's happening, how to approach Corona when they're talking to prospects, when they're starting conversations, even sending emails. And I would first just like to know what you think this situation is doing to people in sales. And yeah, maybe start with what you think this is doing to sales reps and kind of what are the natural effects that this is having, and then maybe what you think a good kind of technique or tactic would be to make sure that salespeople are still able to do their job through
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. I think everybody's feeling the same thing. So we have that in common. But I think as salespeople, they don't know what to do. This is the first time a lot of people in sales have been in a downturn economically. It's been what, 8 years or 12 years since the last one. I've been through a few, so I remember it. And that's why I'm probably not as concerned as a lot of people are.
Mhm.
But a lot of the things that they're being told to do haven't been working before this. And now they're definitely not working. But my
Okay, like
whole,
what?
the pitching, begging for 15 minutes of time, pushing for a demo before there's any need or awareness of the product. They haven't been taught the basic skills of how to build rapport with somebody. They ask how you doing, or now is I hope you're healthy and safe, or safe and sane, which for the first couple weeks touched people, but now it's just another sentence in front of their pitch.
Yeah,
And I'm
yeah,
sure you get them all day.
yeah.
So the challenge is, okay, now you're under more pressure, but you don't know what to do. So what do? You just sometimes panic, do what you used to do, get frustrated, or just stop, which is the worst thing you can do,
Right.
right?
I've seen that. I've seen people really, sharing or posting, and I don't know if it's reflective of what's actually happening, but at least on social media, it looks like people are, for a while we're saying lay low, it's not the time to be selling, it's the time to just be checking on customers and making sure they're okay. And yeah, what do you think about that?
Well, the definition of laying low, I think what they meant was stop pitching, right?
Mhm.
I don't think they meant stop selling or talking with people. Now, great selling is just having a conversation. It's getting to learn about somebody else, understand what challenges they are facing, trying to take latent pain and turn it into active pain, and trying to build unawareness to awareness to curiosity to interest. That's
Mhm.
real selling, instead
Mhm.
of just saying, this is who we are, this is what we do, this is how it works, this is how much it costs. That's order taking, right? That's the simple sale. And that doesn't work because nobody's sitting around, I wonder what I need to spend money on today.
Right. Right. Nobody.
Nobody's doing that.
So how could salespeople come out of this situation or um, be empathetic in this situation without it looking like they're just pitching the Corona messaging?
Yeah, I wouldn't talk about that. You got to talk about what the other person cares about.
Mhm.
If they care about that, that's fine. But I think you need to build rapport with people. And, for the first couple of weeks, I recommended people just tell them this is not a sales call. And then just ask them how they're doing. What are they watching on Netflix? How are they adjusting to working at home? And leave it at that. And naturally, that turns into a business conversation
Mhm.
because they reciprocate by asking you how you're doing. And, oh, yeah, I was still under a lot of pressure and everything. And once you're able to have people want to talk with you instead of have to or not want to, that's what reps are facing today. Either they have to talk to you or they don't want to talk to you. You want them to want to talk with you. That
Mhm.
means you have to talk about what they care about and build from there, not
Mhm.
just stay there, right? Because the traditional thing was, oh, talk about the weather, sports, current events. But that's how you start, but you don't leave it there. You got
Mhm.
to be able to build rapport with somebody. And that takes an outward mindset that a lot of reps haven't had to develop. They've had a great economy for a long time,
Mm.
right?
Wow.
There's a lot of good stuff's been happening. We went from
Mhm.
the lowest unemployment in history to the highest in what, 6 weeks? This is really, uncharted territory. And so it's natural not know what to do. So you have to kind of, each person has to figure it out for themselves, but you know what doesn't work. So just don't do that.
Right. So, do you think this is something that like sales leaders need to be taking more initiative on right now in making sure that their teams are kind of aligned with what the approach should be and say like tone down the pitching, you know?
Eliminate the pitching and start to be creative of what you can do for your prospects and customers. How can you help them?
Mhm.
You know, are are they unemployed? Are their friends unemployed? You know, do they want to learn about something? Uh, are they trying to find something? Anything to engage with them so that they will eventually talk about what you care
Mhm.
about.
Do you think that, you know, the many apps and kind of digital tools that are out there, do you think that there's uh, ways to utilize those tools better to make people better salespeople, or is this situation a deterrent from helping people be better salespeople?
Well, I think this is the time. You have downtime. At minimum, you've gained the commute time if you've never
Right.
never had to work at home. So that might be a half hour to an hour and a half. And what I've been kind of shocked is LinkedIn's traffic has actually been a little flat to down,
Yes, it has.
right? And and I'm on it all day, so I saw it slope down, but yet last week it peaked. I just had a post that went viral on it about,
Nice.
yeah, about how do not lay off salespeople. It's the dumbest thing you could possibly do right now.
But it's right because it's right. It's what's happening right now. It's like no one knows what to do. Everyone's looking at someone else to say something definitive.
Yeah.
You know,
And,
tell
and
us
I
what
always
to
say
do.
people don't think, they react. And not only do they react, they overreact.
Yeah.
And who builds the revenue base?
Mm.
And they're probably less than 50% base salary. And
Right.
you just spent a ton of money training them. What are you going to do in what, 2 months? Do the same thing?
Wow. So how can organizations and business leaders and sales leaders how should they use this time to make their salespeople better? They have to use digital tools, right? They have to utilize their time. They have to try to get people to care more, but they also, you're saying, should be steering away from kind of salesy pitches. That this is about helping salespeople be more personal and more human.
Yeah.
So I love what you said. This is the time. There's downtime now. I think that's a fantastic way of looking at it. At the very least, you have 30 extra minutes
Right. And
to
what do
learn.
people do with it? Who knows, right? But if you are not a rock star on LinkedIn right now, become a rock star on LinkedIn. If you don't like video, learn to like video. Think of ideas that will start conversations, whether it's content, education, uh, comedy, anything that engages another person in your customers, your prospects, your market in a
Mm-hmm.
conversation. Try it. I mean, this
Mm-hmm.
is a great time for marketing and sales to get a little bit more aligned.
That's yes, agreed.
Yeah. Because, what did work really well in B2B complex sales before this was small group meetups about a topic that the audience cared about, no product pitch. That was worked everywhere all the time. It's expensive, it's time consuming, but it works. So I think the numbers game is going to switch. Instead of how many emails can you send a day, what are the best people I want to talk to? Who is worth making that investment in?
Mhm.
And how many can I do within the time I have? Instead of the old school of how many dials, how many connects, how many conversations, how many demos. I think that's the worst approach right now.
Mhm.
Those people will find you. If somebody wants a demo, they'll let you know.
That's not where the work is.
That's not where the right. The order taking is gone.
Right.
Right.
Right. Yeah, it's so interesting what you're saying about alignment. I mean, we're in Tel Aviv and half of our company is in San Francisco. And we usually, even though half of marketing is here and half is there, we have learned to function with just kind of filling each other in.
Yeah.
And same thing with marketing and sales departments. They're also divided. We have Europe and Europe and Middle East sales team over here in Israel, but the American team is over in the US. And I mean, I beforehand found that I was communicating very little, sharing very little of my, content that I was producing each week. It was like, well, they can look at LinkedIn and they see what I do, and so, since we've been working from home, I have to say, everyone has been tapping into each other more.
Yeah.
We've been asking, do you have statistics I could share on this? Hey, I wrote a blog post a couple weeks ago and I thought, I think our sales guys would really like this. And I've never personally reached out and sent an article to the whole sales team on our email list. I usually send it to our product person and say, what do you think? Do you think sales would like this? Maybe I'll send it along to so-and-so who sends it along to so-and-so who never sends it to sales. And I don't know, was empowered by being at home and knowing that this is the only way we can communicate.
Yeah.
I sent it myself and I got a ton of responses. Thank you so much. That was so poignant. I've been looking for content like this to use in my next call. And it was so great. It was something about this change of environment is, it kind of, this is the only way we can communicate now. I'm not going to bump into anyone in the hall. So if
Right.
I want anyone to see it, I have to share it, myself.
Yeah. And then having an interactive conversation about it, because they talk to the customers
Yeah.
and salespeople less filtered than marketing people sometimes.
Yeah.
So the feedback may be very direct and we all get comfortable within our own echo chamber. And we need to get out of the echo chamber and start communicating with other people in other departments so
Yeah.
we
Wow.
understand each other.
Wow. And so you see this as being a positive effect of what's happening now that departments have the opportunity to get more aligned.
I think so, because now, that there's no more comfort that there was before. That no one's going to get a big C round in the next month or so, right? That all that, the kombucha and the refrigerators isn't there anymore, and the foosball table and all of those things that are super comfortable are gone. And people are now focused. We're in business, which means we need to acquire and sustain and delight customers. And how do we do that? Because if you lose your role, you no longer are in the power seat. The hiring manager is now in the power seat.
Yeah. Wow. That's a
That's
really,
scary, and that's a very different world.
yeah.
Because I
That's a great,
remember going through it, after the dot-com boom and then 9/11, and all of a sudden you go from 5 headhunters calling you a day to you calling 5 headhunters a day. So
wow. Yeah. So now is it's a really great point though, that now is the time that maybe when we were more comfortable and the economy was just on this, kind of seemingly ever upward, trend, that it's like, well, we do need to get more aligned. Yeah, we'll do that maybe next quarter.
right,
And now it's like, you
we
should
better
just do
get
it now.
right.
It's like you have to.
I haven't heard one CEO say we're lowering our quotas for the sales team or the marketing team. It's
Wow.
just the opposite. It's like, how do you do more with less? How do you do it in this new world? without events, without in-person contact.
Yeah, that's actually something that's important, I think, especially for B2B professionals to remember, is that if they still have the pressure from above and the machine's still running, then their customers do too. And maybe then it can take some of that fear away of, if I'm talking about my product, or if I'm you know openly selling, maybe that will be insensitive. It's like, well, nobody expects the machine to stop.
Right. And selling doesn't have to be you talking about you, and it shouldn't be. It should be you asking about the other person. What are they up against? And then aligning what you do to help them,
Mm-hmm.
and why they need to do it now, so you can add urgency to it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way sales used to work. You know,
What ruined it? What ruined it?
what ruined it, I think, was the focus from people onto the CRM, instead of using the CRM as what it should be. It's a journaling device. It's to record what's going on, and to give some historic and insight into what's going to happen. And then we basically tried to reduce the cost of sales instead of increase sales. So we hired inexperienced entry-level people to try and get meetings with executives.
Mm-hmm.
And every executive wants to talk to somebody who doesn't know anything about their market, their product, their problem. But sure does want their time, because that's what they get comped on, is getting that 15-minute slot for the account exec.
Right. That's right. That's interesting. But for these huge companies, right? These like big enterprise companies, to keep things running, to make it to the next round, whatever it is, don't they need to consolidate their information in a way, because every individual can't possibly be up to date unless it's in the system? I mean,
Well,
just to play devil's advocate.
yeah, you need the system, but you need it to do what you really want, because what you don't want to turn it into a game where we need 300% pipeline. People just enter 300%. That's not pipeline. That's pretend line.
Right.
That's not real. So a smart manager uses the product to get what they need done. But you do need call notes, reminders, contact information, status, next steps. Got to have that, right? But if you ask for something, you're going to get it, whether it's real or not.
Mm-hmm.
So be careful what you ask for.
Mm-hmm.
It's the observer effect, or Goodhart's law. I don't know if you've heard of that.
No.
Goodhart's law says if you start counting something, you'll get what you want, but it won't be real.
Got it. If you're looking for it hard enough, you'll find it. It doesn't mean that it's really
It's
there.
real, yeah.
Right. Wow, that's very interesting. Those are really interesting points. It wasn't even what I was expecting to get to hear. It's so fascinating. All right, I'm going to refer back to some of the questions. All right, so you made some great points about the CRM and what's crucial about the CRM. Do you think that companies, or maybe smaller businesses that in the past have viewed the CRM as really not as essential, or weren't super aligned, or on top of making sure that everything was updated and that everyone was synced, do you think this is a bit of a
Well,
a lesson?
yeah, because now that's the window. You can no longer walk down the cubicle or yell over the sales floor for an update. You have to find them, call them, or it's going to be the manager's window into what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, most people don't take advantage of most of the capabilities that the technology has. I think that's where you guys come in, where people get comfortable with that 5% they need, and they really
100%.
should be using 50% or 80% of it.
Yes.
It-
It's
it-
pretty amazing, as someone in the marketing, to see these numbers and the data that we get, and to see how little amazing tools are used, and how much money is being spent on each individual employee having that tool.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. It's just,
Yeah.
it's frustrating.
And I'm an entrepreneur and I've got a marketing automation system. I use 1% of it. And
Yeah.
it's just because I'm a busy guy, right? And it's on my list, but it's not very high on my list. You
Yeah.
know,
Well, and that's the thing. As an individual, it's kind of your prerogative if you're going to take care, if you're going to use your tools, or maybe in a year realize, I didn't really use that. I'm not going to renew it. But for a huge organization, a huge, company to be
yeah.
spending millions on tools that are underutilized is just, it's just dumb. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And especially in sales, that the stack has become very high and there's a lot of power in there, but the learning curve is pretty high too. And the activity that's required is daunting.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
do you learn how to use a tool or do you spend more time prospecting or narrowing down and getting the information you need?
Yeah, that's really the key right now, and I think is what what we've seen in terms of for our customers wanting their employees to be able to move a bit faster right
Right.
now, and training is usually slow, and a lot of digital tools don't really need training, and training ends up being inefficient because people don't remember. And I don't remember where that doc is where I wrote down everything that guy said. It's irrelevant. It's like trying to use uh it's a disconnect. Manual training for digital tools, I think, is just a disconnect. It's a mismatch.
Right.
I
I mean,
think
how did you learn how
digital
to drive? You didn't learn
yeah,
how to drive in driver's ed. You learned how to drive by driving.
exactly. Exactly. I mean, I think that in training that's more intuitive, and that is a digital training tool where you're actually getting the guidance as you're going along, as opposed to sitting in an hour of training and then trying to remember it when you're in the situation. I think it's useless. I mean,
It has to be
I think
contextual, has to be real time. And I train salespeople and I hear it all the time. Some people, it has to be interactive and it has to be the current challenge. And sales is a prevention profession, but you have to think ahead to prevent. So you have to ask yourself, what's going to go wrong or what can go wrong and how do I prevent it? Right. So because most of the stuff I get from reps, it's all repair. They won't call me back. They've gone dark for 3 months now. My competitor's in there now, or if they're blocking me from talking to their manager. All of these things are preventable, but you have to do it.
so. If you could pick like one focus, or like one uh, tip, or one kind of area that you think you would tell like leaders, like directors right now, um, to focus on, what would it be?
Clearly, it would be how to develop your reps with an outward mindset, how to get them curious, interested, and empathetic about what their prospects and customers are going through, not just COVID, not just, recession or anything, but what would they talk about? Because if you can talk with somebody, what's the likelihood that you can sell them something? Much higher than when they won't talk to you. Sending a text email, unless it's a give, you're not going to get a response. We
Mhm.
all get asks all day long. Would you do this? you know, this is how I can help you, but you have to meet with me first. It's like the exchange isn't equal. You're given $1 and asking for 20 in return. That's not a good deal for anybody. You have to do the opposite. You have to give 20 and ask for 1. And this
Mhm.
is human nature. This is not rocket science or some new fangled sales approach. This has worked since the beginning of time.